Talking about the Terrifier. Not the Terrifier, it's just Terrifier. I think it was released in theaters, but I don't even know. I saw it on Netflix. It came up and, like, immediately was like, you should watch this. I remember seeing pictures on, like, horror, forums like Reddit, like, stuff like that. Like, just kind of scrolling, and I would see, like, a picture of Art the Clown without really knowing what it was, and seeing the movie Terrifier. Has anyone seen the Terrifier? You know, like, anything like that. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, people are talking about it, so I'll watch it. It's about a killer clown. Super original. It felt really similar to Stitches. It's about a clown who's truly evil, who's sort of hunting these teenage people, you know, like these college-aged kids. He has this sort of, like, disdain for him and who they are, and he's kind of, like, silly and weird and charming and funny, but really, really creepy at the same time. Except Stitches is a vastly better film and relies much more on comedy than this does. It's a bunch of, like, cat-mouse crap. It's the same old, like, you don't see him and now you do, and she's under the car and he knows that she's there, but he's pretending like he doesn't, and then he disappears and she thinks he's gone, and then, like, she gets up and he's, like, behind her. Like, it was all very, like, oh, and there he is, and there. Like, if you watch a lot of horror movies, you know exactly where he's going to be at all times, because it's pretty formulaic in its scares. If you're gonna have a creepy clown, you need to do something different. And I feel like they made him really scary, which is different, because a lot of the times the clowns aren't scary. But, like, that's it. In this movie, there's zero character development. Mm-hmm. That's just one of my problems with the film. No character development, so you don't know who anybody is at all. You don't know what's happened right before, other than the fact that they were at a bar on Halloween. Like, you don't know who these girls are. And you don't know who this guy is. Mm-hmm. He's just a creepy clown. And they're just two drunk girls. That is it. This movie was made by someone who really loves horror movies. That's very obvious. And somebody who really wants to creep the fuck out of people. Like, that was his intention with this movie. It's just, I want to be scary. I want to be scary, I want to be brutal, I want to be bloody. That was his intention. I don't think there was any other intentions there. Which is fine for a horror movie. That you don't need more intentions than that. That's fine, you know. Terrifier was based off of a short film. He's been working on this character for a really long time. I don't remember his name, but I looked at his IMDb, and he really hasn't done anything except work with this character for, like, a really long time. Like, he did some other stuff, mostly horror-related. Art and the actor who played him are super cool. He's a really cool character. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people cosplayed Art the Clown, you know? He's that kind of cool. I have to say, this character's, like, he really is fucking creepy. Like, he really is. They did a really good job on the visuals of him, and I read that the actor, David Howard Thornton, I looked that up right before we started filming, because no one knows who he is. He was a mime, or had, like, mime training and used that, and you can, like, totally see that in his performance. He was very, very good. His performance was a huge part of why I found any enjoyment in this movie. You understood every emotion he wanted you to feel. I mean, there's no backstory, and so I think given no backstory, you kind of, like, got that he was maybe just this guy who, like, just hates everyone. Like, maybe a guy who was, like, bullied, like, hardcore, and I'm just making this shit up, but, like, it was in his performance, I saw this disdain for, like, human life and people, and taking selfies, like, he smashed his cell phone at one point. He just, like, went, like, fucking apeshit on his cell phone, and it just felt like he was creating this character that was just sort of, like, over his own generation. There might have been, like, thematic things that they were trying to do that have something to do with, you know, a disdain for this generation and always being on their phone. It's a flood warning. I actually think that they maybe did it on purpose, because one of the EMTs that wheels the bodies in to the morgue is on her phone for some reason. Like, she's just sitting there like this. Like, while, like, there's, like, a dead body right next to her. So I feel like maybe they actually did do that. Like, that was a theme, now that I'm thinking back on it. This, like, disdain for the look at me generation. Maybe that's not the point at all, but that's what I felt, all from this guy's performance. I don't even know if that's the theme of the movie. I feel like they don't go into it a lot. and you're given characters that you don't really know anything about. And we're so used to people always being on their phones and taking selfies and talking about Instagram, and like at some point when the blonde takes a selfie with him, she posts it and tells him, you already have 8 likes. Like, we're so used to hearing that language that it's sort of just like one ear out the other. Like, oh, okay, they're just vapid girls. They're just girls of this generation. I feel like there wasn't a clear vision for what the theme of the movie was, which I can relate to. If I were to make a horror movie, I feel like it might be very similar to this film. Just wanting to make creepy visuals and scare people and freak people out and be gross. They had a killer who had so much character but none at all. Like, you don't get any sort of idea. Even Michael Myers, who you don't really know anything about, right? At least you know what happened to him. He killed his sister when he was younger. He's obviously got fucking issues. He's a character. This Art the Clown is some supernatural, crazy person who can't die. It was a waste of a good character. I think because, again, there was no development whatsoever on the people he was trying to kill. You don't know who he is or where he came from or what he's trying to do. So the theme didn't really work because why is he so angry at technology? If he's not a real person who grew up maybe with people who were bullying him, or he'd rather sit at home and read a book and drink a glass of cognac, you know, like, he's not. He's supernatural. They said that at the end, so I don't know why he hates cell phones so much, you know? It's just not fully realized. It can't just be about people dying. It's got to be about more than that to become something that I'm going to want to watch more than one. Art the Clown, I think, is a great character and super creepy and great, but, like, you need to develop your characters. Slasher movies always work better when you kind of give a shit about the characters. When you know who they are, you know what they want from life, and you know what their real life struggles are. This movie had none of that. This movie is just a gore fest, which I am fine with. You know, the acting was like, okay. The girl who played Tara was good, you know. She didn't, like, ruin anything for me. Like, her performance was fine. Like, she was scared and she needed to be scared. It didn't feel like bad horror movie acting. All of the females were, like, pretty good. The crazy woman with the baby was a little over the top, but her character was over the top. I don't even know why that character was there. Maybe to provide boobs and hair. I thought maybe she'd be related to Art in some way. I don't know. But she wasn't. There's 3 very beautiful women in sexy clothing getting brutalized. And you don't know anything about these women. You know one's in college, and then she has a test tomorrow. You know one likes Instagram, and you know one is kind of goth. Like, you don't know who these women are. One of them is dressed like a sexy scarecrow, I think that's what she was, and the other one is dressed like a sexy skeleton. Like, without any sort of character development, it's just brutality for the sake of brutality. And when it's all against women, that can be really hard to take. Like, all the men that died in the movie, they didn't get tortured. They just flat out died. And they really fucking torture the women. Like, he is whipping her with a chain and a hook on the end of it, just over and over, and it's pulling her skin, and she's screaming and, like, writhing on the ground and bleeding and just crying, and it's kind of like, why is this happening? This guy gets a hammer in the head, and she gets whipped with a fucking chain and hooks on it. And, like, the girl who had her body sawed in half, vagina first. Like, it just felt sexual in a way that didn't make me feel comfortable. It felt gratuitous, and maybe that's why they did it, because it affected me. Like, it was like, oh, I didn't expect this from this movie. Like, I guess we're really going here, you know, like. Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie is an incredibly brutal movie. Annie's death scene in the bathroom was just horrific, but, like, it never felt like it was about women getting brutalized. Even though, for the majority of the film, it was women in Halloween 2, and the Halloween franchise is mostly women getting killed, but it just didn't feel that way. Like, this is, like, shocking for just to be shocking, in a way that I thought was unnecessary. I'm all for brutality in horror movies, because it's not real, and it's just kind of fun sometimes, you know. I don't mind it. Even though that was one of the creepiest, coolest parts for me, like, yeah, like him, like, wearing her boobs and her hair and pretending to be a woman. He's nude, I think. You don't really see, like, his junk or anything, but, like, I think he's completely naked. He's very skinny, and he's wearing these boobs, and it's this sort of weird, like Buffalo Bill moment, where he's, like, acting like a lady and, like, moving his hair back, but all where he's got this, like, horrendous like clown makeup on his face, and he's just naked and super thin with like these boobs and this hair, and he's just like walking and like flicking his hair and like doing stuff like this and like walking super slow but still catching up to her. And like this, it just felt like, why does he hate women so much? Why doesn't he like do anything with the guy? Like, he just kills them to get them out of the way so he can get to the women. And maybe it's a mommy thing. Maybe that's why they did that whole weird, like, have you ever felt a mommy's touch, like with him sucking his thumb? Like, maybe it is, and he's got something against women. But then, like, why? Like, why? Like, who knows? Because they didn't answer any questions. So the movie's not good enough for this kind of analysis. You know, like, it's just a gore fest. There was no plot. It was just people he was killing. The thing that I said when it was over was, that was the movie that I watched. I don't want to watch this movie again. I don't feel like I need to recommend it to anybody. I didn't hate it. I laughed. I looked at the screen the whole time. You know, I didn't look at my phone. I didn't think about other things. Like, it kept me entertained, but I don't feel the need to watch it again or tell anybody else that they need to watch it. Out of 1 to 10, it's a 4. No, I really enjoyed some parts of it, and I feel bad giving it a 4, so I'm going to give it a 5. I don't hate it. I wouldn't say that it was like, no, watch that movie. Like, it's just not anything that notable. They just lost out on a chance of making a notable film that could have been something that people, like, watch and rewatch. Like, it could have been another movie that everybody watches around Halloween time, but it's not going to be. And so if you enjoyed this video, you should hit like and subscribe. You should like me with a button.